So you're wanting to buy a home in California, but there's so many thoughts about how in the world am I going to afford a home here? Where do I even start? How am I supposed to live in such an expensive state? Well, I have been there personally. A lot of my clients have as well too. So today I'm going to walk you through how to get started on the home buying process. We're going to debunk some myths and we're going to go over how you can get your process started. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know all about living here in the Central Valley of California, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that bell for notifications so you can be the first one updated about the Central Valley, California real estate market. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a local realtor based out of Turlock in California's Central Valley, and I get calls from people just like you every single day looking to make a move here to the Valley. So if you're looking to move in 9 days or 90 days, it doesn't matter. Feel free to book a Zoom call with me, send me a text, shoot me an email, give me a call, however you want to contact me, and we can sit down together to go over exactly what it is that you're looking for. So I'm sure you have a ton of questions about buying a home, where to start, different myths, but the first thing I want to go over is the biggest question that I, myself, and so many other realtors get asked all the time, and that is now a good time to buy? Well, I'm going to be honest with you, there is no yes or no direct answer. If someone's telling you, of course, it's always a good time to buy, then that's just simply not the truth. The truth is, it's only a good time to buy if it's a good time to buy for you. It completely depends on your situation and your situation alone. Yes, there are more favorable times to buy in the market. Maybe if it's a buyer's market and you're seeing a lot of sellers doing price decreases, that could be a huge benefit to you as a buyer. But if you are not financially, mentally, emotionally ready to buy a home, then it's probably not going to be a good time for you. But on the flip side, it may be a great time for you if you've been thinking about this for months or years, if you've been working on building your credit, if you've been working on saving for down payment and closing costs, if you are just tired of paying someone else's mortgage and paying rent, then it could be a great time for you. Now, on the flip side, if maybe you don't have a super stable income, if you're planning on changing jobs in the near future, if you know you've got a really big car loan or maybe some other credit card debt that's really hindering your credit score, might not be the best time for you, but that's okay because that's all things that you can work on and give it a year or two, and then it may be a great time for you. So no, there is no clear answer, but it really comes down to your personal situation. And if you're not really sure, then just reach out to me or a loan officer and we can go over if maybe it could be a good or not so good time for you. Now, something important for us to also go over are some really common home buying myths because there are so many of them. If you try to Google how to buy a house, you're going to go down this huge rabbit hole and you're going to learn a lot of wrong information. Same thing if you're getting advice from someone who maybe bought a home 30, 40 years ago and has not done any real estate transactions since then. You're probably going to hear advice that was true at that time period in the 80s, 90s, maybe even earlier, but it's really not relevant now for some of it. So let's go over what some of the common things are so that you're not discouraged from buying just because a few of these myths. So the first and the very most common myth that I hear that just drives me crazy is you need 20% for a down payment. That is simply not true. There are so many different programs that allow you to put way less than 20% down. And I'm not talking, 18, 19 versus 20. I'm talking all the way down to 0% down with some of these programs. And we're going to talk about some of those later as well too. So stick around for that if you want to hear programs that you may qualify for. But you do not need 20% down. If you can get 20% down, that's awesome. I mean, the more you put down, the less your mortgage payment is going to be every month. But it's really not realistic for a lot of first-time home buyers especially. So don't let this deter you because there's so many other programs that we can go over with you. Now, the second myth we hear a lot is, I need perfect credit. Now, yes, the better your credit, the more you'll qualify for and the better interest rate that you can potentially get. But you don't need perfect credit. You don't need credit in the 800s or high 700s to qualify. There's plenty of programs that you get qualified in the lower 600s. Now, yeah, if your credit's like 200, 300, something crazy like that, you're not going to qualify, I'll be real with you, but you don't need to be in the 7 or 800s to qualify. So keep that in mind. And if you are thinking of buying a home, start working on building that credit now. Pay off those student loans, car payments, try to get rid of any credit card debt. Don't be opening up new forms and lines of credit either. So that's just something to consider. Now, the third one I hear a lot is it's cheaper to rent than buy. Now, this one's a little controversial because this could go either way. This technically is not a myth because sometimes it is cheaper to rent than it is to buy. But there's also a lot of times where it can be cheaper to buy in the long run than renting. And the reason for that is your mortgage payment is not going to increase. Your rent, I can pretty much guarantee you, will be increased at some point or another. So this totally depends on how expensive of a house you buy, what the interest rates are like at the time, how much of a down payment you put. There's so many factors into how much your mortgage payment is going to be every month, but there's a good chance it could actually be cheaper than renting. Now, I used to live in San Jose for about a year while I went to school, and my monthly rent was more expensive than my mortgage payment here once I moved back to the Valley. Now, of course, that's comparing, apples and oranges because the Bay Area is significantly more expensive than the Valley. But that's just to give you an example where you actually can save more with your mortgage sometimes. Now, the last one is I hear people, I can only be a first-time home buyer once. Now, this one's confusing for a lot of people because the words first time are included in it. So everyone thinks that first time means you've literally never purchased a home. Well, that's actually not true. To be considered a first-time home buyer, you can't have owned any property in the past 3 years. So let's say it's currently 2025. You purchased and owned a home in 2020, but you sold it that same year. So it's been at least 4 years, depending on what time you sold it, since you've owned a home at all. Like your name has not been on the title to anything. That means you are a first-time home buyer again and can qualify for more programs. So these are some of the most common myths that I hear. There's some other ones as well too. You can put them in the comments if you hear some, and I can help you either debunk them or validate them. Now, a big reason why a lot of people like to own their home is because there's a ton of benefits that come with it. Now, the first and one of the biggest things to me is you are building equity. You are pretty much putting money towards your financial future. Yes, the money you put towards interest, you're not going to get back. That's what the bank earns for giving you that loan. But when you pay every monthly payment towards your principal, the amount towards your actual mortgage, that is you being a little bit closer to some financial freedom and helping you build equity. So if you don't know what equity is, that essentially is the difference between how much your home can be worth now and how much you still owe on it. So let's say your home's worth $500,000, and after all your payments and how much it's appreciated over time, you still have $450,000 left on it. You just built yourself $50,000 in equity. So if you were to go sell that property, you would be netting around there's other fees of course, but just given for the simplicity of the example, you would be making about 50 grand on that, which you can use towards another home, other investments, however you want to use it. So this is one of the biggest benefits, I would say, to owning a home. Now, another benefit is you have stable monthly payments. If you're renting, like I already mentioned, there's a good chance your payment is going to go up just about every single year, especially here in California. Now, your mortgage payment, whatever you lock in at, that is not going to change. The bank legally cannot just change it on you for any reason unless you chose some specific type. There's different types of interest or loan programs where your rate and everything could change. But for the most part, if you go with just traditional financing, if they say your payment is going to be $2,000 in 2025, if you don't refinance or do anything to touch it, 10 years from now in 2035, your payment's still going to be $2,000 a month. And that is absolutely huge because as time goes on, maybe you get pay raises, make a little bit more money, but your mortgage is going to stay the same versus your rent catching up with you. So that's a huge one. Now, what I also love about owning a home is the freedom to make it your own. There's so many more regulations and restrictions when you rent. You can't paint the walls a certain color. Don't put anything on there that's going to leave holes or marks, and then you have to pay your deposit and you're going to lose your deposit and all this other stuff. When you own a home, you can virtually do whatever you want to it. Now, of course, there's some regulations. If you live in an HOA, you can't, don't paint your house bright neon orange or something like that. But for the most part, you can do whatever you want to your home, and that is huge freedom and just such a freedom to personalize it as well too. Make it really your own. And lastly, I kind of touched on this, but another benefit is you are investing in your future, not someone else's. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you are paying rent, you are paying someone else's mortgage. You're investing in someone else's future and someone else's long-term financial goals. But if you are paying for a mortgage for yourself, that is investing in your future, not someone else's. So I did promise you towards the beginning of the video that we would go over some different programs and ways to help you get into a home. I did not forget about it, so let's go over some of them right now. So one of the biggest things that holds people back from buying their first home, it's the down payment and the closing costs, because that can be a lot of cash up front that there's a good chance you might not have, especially as a first-time home buyer. It's totally understandable. And I work with people all the time that have hardly nothing to put down, and that's okay because there's programs to help you with that. So the first one I want to talk about is down payment assistance programs. Now there's one specifically here in California that we call CalHFA. Some people call it Cal HFA. I don't know, we just call it CalHFA here in the office. And that is a specific California, a state program through California that helps cover your down payment. Now there are requirements. You have to meet some of their specific income limitations, credit requirements as well too. But if you do qualify, and a lot of people do, they can help cover your down payment. And that is absolutely huge. They will do 3.5% down for you. Now, this money is not free. It's not included in your monthly mortgage. However, if you were to ever sell the house, you would have to pay that amount back then. But that is so far down in the future and you'd be building equity like we talked about, that's really not a big deal. So if that's down payment is what's stopping you, this program alone has helped so many people get into homes, personal clients of myself too. So definitely look into that if you are thinking of buying. Now, another really commonly known one is an FHA loan. And FHA loan is, a lot of people get it when they are first-time home buyers. So they do offer some lower interest rates as well as lower down payment. So your down payment, you can go as low as 3.5%. And as I mentioned too, interest rates can be significantly lower than traditional conventional loans, anywhere from about 1% lower. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when you compare your monthly mortgage payments, that is a huge, huge difference. I mean, that could be the difference of over a few $100s depending on what type of or how expensive of a home that you're getting. Now, another really neat program is a VA loan. If you are a veteran or have previously served as well too, you can qualify for a VA loan that you can put 0% down on a home. That's huge. This is a great benefit for veterans. Definitely talk to a loan officer about this one if you have served before. And I think, need to double check, but I'm pretty sure if you are a spouse of a veteran as well too, you can qualify. So that's a huge benefit. We're really trying to get veteran families into homes as well. Now, another type of loan is a USDA loan. This one's really neat because you can use this one here more in the Central Valley. Now, if you're buying a home in the rest of California, you're probably not going to be able to use this loan much, but USDA loan is used for rural areas. There's like a population cap. For example, Stanislaus County, we have Houston. I think Denera qualifies for it. If you go to Winton, closer to Merced County, there's if you find these smaller towns, they can potentially get you qualified for the loan. Now, what's the benefit of the loan? Lower interest rates and lower down payment, potentially no down payment as well too, depending on the specific program. So definitely look into that if you're moving to a much smaller, kind of in the middle of nowhere town, which is a lot of the Central Valley. So that's kind of big. Now, last thing I want to talk to you about is seller credits. Now, it's not a program. It's not a specific loan or anything, but it's a huge hack I use for a lot of my clients, especially first-time home buyers, to be able to get into their home. Now, what are seller credits, also known as seller concessions? Seller credits or concessions is when you are writing your offer, you ask the seller to pretty much give you some money back to help cover your closing costs. Now, this can be huge, and especially right now with such high home prices, a lot of sellers are willing to do it. And you're probably thinking like, why would sellers want to give you more money? But if their home's sitting on the market, they can't get it sold because of, who knows, a number of reasons. Maybe it's overpriced. They're going to be more willing to give you some credits to help cover those closing costs so you can make sure that the transaction is closed. And I've done that for so many clients, especially these first-time home buyers, and it's honestly a lifesaver. So these are some of the main programs and just different ways you can get around the down payment and closing costs, helping you with all of that. So definitely look into all of those programs, and you might actually be able to buy a home when you think you couldn't before. All right, so you've determined maybe you can't actually qualify for a loan. You're thinking this might actually work for me, but where do I move? Now, obviously, I'm talking about the Central Valley here. I'm a Central Valley realtor, but I love it here because it is so much affordable than the rest of California. You won't find prices like this anywhere in the Bay Area or Southern California. So I'll talk about a few different counties. San Joaquin County, which encompasses, we have Manteca, Stockton, Tracy, some of those bigger cities in in Central Valley, is going to be a little bit more expensive. Now, why is that? It's kind of becoming mini Bay Area. A lot of people from the Bay Area are moving. It's driving up some of our home prices because we get a lot of commuters as well too that go to the Bay. So if it is your first home, those places might be a little bit more expensive than what you're looking for. But if we make our way a little bit more south, it continues getting more and more affordable. So if we look at Stanislaus County, which comes after here's San Joaquin, here's Stanislaus County. Stanislaus County has Modesto, Turlock, Ceres, multiple other smaller towns as well too. And it gets a little bit more affordable with the average median home price being in the 400,000s, depending on where you're looking. Now, if you want even more affordable, you're going to keep going more south. And we get into Merced County. So again, we have San Joaquin County, Stanislaus County, Merced County. And Merced County is going to be even more affordable. And it kind of just keeps going that way. All the way from Merced to, around Fresno County are very comparable in their home prices. So, and I think it's because we're getting further away from the Bay Area. The Bay Area really drives up our prices if they can commute. Now, people from all the way in, Fresno probably aren't commuting to the Bay because that is quite a long drive. So just the more south we go, that's still in the Central Valley region, not Southern California, you're going to find a lot more affordable homes. So those might be places that you want to check out. Now, I know you're probably maybe getting excited about buying a home, but I want you to be aware of some very common mistakes that a lot of buyers, especially first-time home buyers who have no experience with real estate, make. The very first one, the biggest one I see, is not getting pre-approved for a loan before you start looking at houses. And I actually won't start looking at houses with clients until they get a pre-approved. And there's a couple of reasons. The first is, especially in competitive markets, a seller will not even look at your offer unless you have a pre-approval letter. And that is a letter from your loan officer saying that you are qualified for the loan amount that you're going to purchase the house with. And why is that? Because if you're a seller, you want to accept something that you don't know if they even qualify for. So that's the reason. The second reason, and this one's a biggie, is I don't want you to fall in love with a home that you don't even know if you qualify for yet. Looking at homes before you're pre-qualified gets you to really kind of shop out of your budget, because this happens quite often. People think, I love this $500,000 home. They're ready to make a move. They're committed. They're just ready to go. Then they get pre-qualified and they only qualify for $450,000. Now, where's that extra $50,000 going to come from? You either have to bring it in on your own, which if you're a first-time home buyer, that might be really hard to get that much money, or you need to shop for homes that are more in your budget. So definitely get pre-approved first so we know what we're working with. And so your expectations, you don't set the bar too high essentially for what homes you're looking at. Now, another one I always advise against is do not skip home inspections or waive a bunch of contingencies just to have a more solid offer. Now, yeah, if you're paying 100% cash, you can do whatever you want. I actually recommend waiving it sometimes if you're paying cash. But if you are a first-time home buyer, make sure you get those home inspections. If you are in the Valley, especially get a pest inspection. Maybe don't spend all your money on home or roof if the home seems in pretty good condition, but always get a pest inspection. It's the cheapest of all of them and it's the most beneficial. Here in the Valley, we get really sandy soil and that can cause for a lot of termites. I have had so many buyers that have had termites in their homes. It's very easy to treat. Don't be too concerned about it, but it's something you want to be aware of so they don't cause damage. So don't skip any of those. Make sure you do a thorough job or have your realtor do a thorough job for you. Now, another one is I see some buyers underestimate how much closing costs are going to be. They think of a down payment. Everyone always thinks of, if I have to put 3% down or 5% down, whatever you're putting down, that's how much I'm going to have to pay. No, you also have closing costs, and that usually is around 2 to 3% of the overall purchase price. Now, what are closing costs? Closing costs are pretty much all the miscellaneous fees you have to pay. I know, it's kind of ridiculous. It stinks paying so many fees that are just so minutia, but it pays for your title fees, for your escrow to go through, paying for your loan officer, and all the fees that come with getting a loan. Getting a loan is not free. You have to pay these fees. So be prepared for the closing costs. But that's how I was talking about earlier. You can get potentially seller credits that can help cover these closing costs for you. So keep that in mind. Now, next big common mistake I see is being stuck on a certain price. Now, obviously, I don't want to push you above what you're comfortable paying. However, I see a lot of times buyers get stuck on a certain price point, and if they would have just paid a little more, they would have actually saved money. Now, let me explain. I've had people before where they, are stuck on a certain price point, end up buying a home that's in their price point or a little bit lower, and they're thinking they're saving money because it's less than what they were expecting to pay, but the home's probably not moving ready, and they end up spending more money in the long run, doing renovations, remodeling, getting rid of termites, things like that. So just be prepared for that. If it's move-in ready, it sometimes might be beneficial to just go ahead and pay a little bit more, and you actually save money in the long run. Now, the last thing, do not shop outside of your budget. Even if you get qualified for X amount, you don't need to spend this much. If you don't feel comfortable making a payment over a certain amount, then don't do it. We need to shop within your budget where you feel comfortable so you don't end up house poor and struggling to make your payments every month. So these are some of the biggest mistakes that I see, but have a licensed realtor guide you through this and you won't make those mistakes. So if you actually are considering buying a home, here's the timeline. This is how it's gonna go. First, you need to get pre-approved. Go talk to a loan officer. If you're looking in the Central Valley area, you can reach out to me. I have plenty of loan officers that I work with. Next, you need to talk to a realtor. You're gonna go over what your time frame is, what you're looking for in a home. This is kind of interchangeable with the first step. You can meet with a realtor first if you want, but keep in mind, again, we can't show you homes unless we know how much you're qualified for. So talk to a realtor, talk to a lender. It's kind of interchangeable, but do those first. Next, you're going to actually start house hunting. Once you get pre-approved for a loan, we'll know how much you can afford. We'll see what your budget's going to be, and we'll start looking at homes. And that's honestly kind of the fun part where you get to see a lot. Now, the time frame for this one, I cannot give you a specific time frame because it depends on you and how fast you want to move. I've had some people that the very first home they see is the one they want to buy. And then there's others who I've looked at over 30 homes with. We worked with over 5 months. It totally depends on whatever your time frame is for that. Once you do find a home that you are ready to buy, you're going to make an offer on the home. And we're going to do negotiations, try to get you the best deal. Once you get an offer accepted, we're going into the escrow process. Now, the escrow process is pretty much throughout the time period of once you get your offer accepted until you close on the home. That's usually around 30 days. Can be a little shorter depending on your loan type, how easy it is to get that loan done. But during escrow, that is when you get your home inspections completed. That's when your loan officer is doing all the loans and back end stuff for you. That is when you're getting an appraisal on your home. An appraisal is making sure that the home is worth however much you're paying for it. So there's a lot of stuff a realtor and a loan officer are doing on your behalf kind of in the background. And it's honestly not like a ton for you to do during this time period. It's going to feel like a lot of waiting around. You're probably going to get really anxious and ready to move forward, but just be patient. If we need documents from you, we'll get those from you. If you need to sign a bunch of stuff in between, you'll do that there as well too. So that's the escrow process. Now, once you're about ready to close, we're going to do a final walkthrough of the property, make sure if there were repairs that we agreed upon that the seller did them. We're going to make sure that the home is still in the same condition as when we first put the offer. Make sure nothing's been broken into, everything still looks good. Seller didn't go, rip out the stove when they agreed to leave it. So it does happen. So just things like that, we always want to make sure we do a final walkthrough. And then you're going to have a final signing appointment, and it's a huge stack of papers you have to sign with a notary going over transferring the home to your name from the sellers and a bunch of other miscellaneous stuff in between. So that's a really quick breakdown of the timeline. Overall, once you find a home, again, it's only about 30 days. So it's really determined on how fast you want to move. So are you ready to make your move? If you are looking to move here to the Central Valley of California, feel free to shoot me a text, give me a call, book a Zoom meeting with me, and I'd be happy to sit down with you and go over exactly what it is that you're looking for. I want to make the process of buying a home, potentially your first home, as smooth and easy as possible for you. So just reach out to me at any time and I'd be happy to help. Till next time, I'm happy to show you around the valley.